Peace. Welcome to Spears and Mics. I'm Zulu King L1, one of your hosts, and we got our co-host Watt Slice in the building, and then we got a returning special guest, true hip hop head, true b-boy head, true hip hop culture is in the building with us, brother Pluto 7.
Thank you. Thank you. I
Yo,
appreciate
thank you for coming by, brother, for real.
it. Absolutely.
For
Absolutely.
those that haven't seen Brother Pluto on some of our previous episodes, definitely hit the video selection and check it out or go onto our page and search Pluto 7. We got a couple of videos with him and a few shorts as well, and the brother be dropping serious, accurate
More
hip hop
information.
knowledge,
More.
hip hop information for real, true B-boy, B-girl history from the most authentic viewpoint and standpoint because the brother lives the culture. He just ain't a part of the culture. He lives the culture. You know what I'm saying?
More.
So peace to the brother Pluto 7, our Zulu brother, and our brother in hip hop.
Thank you.
More.
Appreciate it.
Yo, before we get started on the topic, I wanted to make some amendments, corrections rather. Um, on the episode where we discussed Slick Rick's victory, I made a statement saying that Supreme Clientele 2 was dropping June 20th because that's what we thought, that's what we saw on the internet, and we made a mistake. It's obviously it's past June 20th, and there
Hmm.
was no Supreme Clientele 2. There's no date for it. So
Hmm.
whatever that was on the internet, if it's not coming through Mass Appeal or Ghostface himself, then it ain't valid. So
It's
my
not coming
mistake.
from Mass Appeal?
No, it is. I'm just
Well,
saying if Mass Appeal didn't speak on it
yeah.
like on the release date because we saw something, it was like a release date, and it was like June 20th, and I'm
Mhm.
like, there's no track listing, so that's weird. I'm thinking Mass Appeal is
Hmm.
like
Hmm.
keeping it under wraps and surprising, and somebody leaked it,
Yeah.
but
Right.
that wasn't the case, and um, but we're still anticipating the album. And another
Definitely.
thing I said the last episode where we discussed RZA saying that GZA was a superior MC to Nas and Rakim. I had said the R and the 18th letter wasn't the same album, and I made another mistake saying that. And the R is in fact the 18th letter. Nobody calls it the R because the actual album is called the 18th letter, but R is the 18th letter in the alphabet. And
Right.
I made a mistake. So that album, the R, isn't an actual album. So we try to keep it authentic here. And if we make mistakes, we're human beings, but we're gonna amend the mistake. You know what I'm saying? So my mistake, my apologies. So now we
As
can
the
move
brothers
on.
say, proper education always corrects errors. You
Right.
know what I mean? So yeah, nah.
Peace.
Word. You know what I'm saying? That's definitely peace. Yeah, sometimes we get it wrong, and I've made mad mistakes throughout like filming different episodes, and it's because we've been consuming hip hop and living the culture for so long. Sometimes you get scrambled. Like we not young ones no more. We not like I guess like manhood is not. We got so much on our plates. You can't remember all the facts, dates, and all of that. So but we gotta, I guess, study and stay sharp. I know Pluto, you got so much info, your brain be on hip hop overload.
Information.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a lot, it's a lot to remember, like we like you guys said, I definitely, make mistakes and I make corrections. Sometimes I will do things to put myself on the chopping block because sometimes people are hesitant to really share. But I found that putting myself on the chopping block, I get certain answers a lot quicker, or it allows me to learn.
Mm.
You know, to sound cliche, stay a student. I'm always a student. I'm always constantly learning, I like to read. I like to educate myself, and I like to learn. So this is something that's it's tireless.
No doubt, definitely, definitely. So what brings us today is Watt had said something very interesting in a previous episode. I guess it was our last episode, and he said, "Is hip hop even a culture anymore?" Watt, you wanna say what you said so that I don't want to misquote you.
Well, she said hip hop isn't a culture anymore
Right.
because a culture has guidelines, rules, and parameters, and we don't have any. And to even further the point, there's four elements to this. Well, five if you count the knowledge. And we're only focusing on, well, the mainstream is only focusing on one,
Right.
the MCing part, the rap part of it. You know what I'm saying? So like, is it a culture when you're just focusing on one particular element of it?
Right.
You
Right.
know, and
Right.
and there's no rules, regulations, or guidelines, and then the other elements are just left to, like for scraps,
Right.
basically, to pick up scraps. Like, why aren't b-boys making as much money or, like notoriety as the rappers or the DJ or the graffiti artists? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, um, graffiti was on its own before it became an element. You know what I'm saying? And like, I don't want to steal from Pluto, but because I know he's gonna say it, there is no hip hop without the b-boy.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So like, is it really a culture now? Is it? Because like we hear all these rappers, I'm putting on for the culture. I'm doing this for the culture. It's for the culture. It's for the culture. But is it for the culture, or it just is it to line your pockets and be fly and you know what I'm saying and lead people astray?
Right. What culture is
You know what
it?
I'm saying? Like, what culture is it, right?
Yeah.
One thing that I want to say is that what really bothers me is the younger MCs, and I hate to like classify or like target one, the younger artists in hip hop, is they totally disassociated with hip hop culture. It's they don't even care about the craft of MCing. So that's the first problem. Like you're a rapper, you're supposed to be an MC, and your pen isn't sharp. You're not writing anything brilliant. And it's 2025. The flows and the penmanship are supposed to progress in hip hop, right? How brothers was flowing in 78, 79, and now it's 2025, and man, like people have regressed in hip hop. And then those rappers, these MCs don't even care about hip hop culture. They don't incorporate other elements. They don't give no shine to a DJ. They don't even have DJs. Like almost every rapper had a DJ. Now dudes don't have DJs no more. Dudes don't have groups of b-boys that they're affiliated with and incorporating b-boys, b-girls. They ain't nobody bombing or tagging in the background, no doing no aerosol arts. Period. So the graffiti is out of the videos. The b-boys is out of the videos. So it's like, yo, the rappers and the MCs is completely out of sync with hip hop nowadays. And to me, it's disgusting because we come up in the era where we saw these elements interacting with each other. It was a fusion of the elements,
High
and that's
quality
what made
crafts,
hip hop so brilliant.
high quality craft,
Operations have a lot to do with that,
high quality
with separating the elements, because the
Mhm.
Who? I'm sorry,
corporations
who? Corporations. Okay, okay.
corporations they have a lot to do with that. Um, because if you can't make multi-million billion dollars off of it, what good is
Hmm.
it in
Hmm.
their eyes? Not to say that it's not worthy, because
Hmm.
we grew up in New York. Pluto, you grew up in Jersey. How many times have we walked to the train station and saw crews battling each other? And I grew up in the '80s, so going to the train, like, that was the norm.
Hmm.
Seeing that on the street, seeing a fly tag on the wall or something, and until they, like, until the mayor started cracking down on that stuff, and like, you had to pay a heavy fine and possible imprisonment for
I mean, we rode the subways with the
rioting.
with the where you
But,
couldn't even
but,
see out the window.
yo, that's a
So
fact.
you know what I'm
That's a
saying?
fact.
Like
But
you'd have to listen to your stop. You wouldn't see it. You know
before
what I'm
we hear
saying?
Pluto, I wanted to make a point, talk about like what you just said about like the lyrics with the youth. Um, not saying I disagree with you, but back in the '70s, like when the thing in the early '80s, late '70s, when the thing started, like took off a little bit, you had Melly Mel, who was rapping, had lyrics, you had Kaz, but then you had Busy B. And you know what I'm saying? So like, and then after the, like the first known battle or whatever was Busy B and Kumo D, right?
Well, I mean
Wasn't it?
that was like
I mean, first notable one,
I mean, there was always been like MC battles. There are tons. If you listen to a lot of the mixtapes,
right?
from back in the day, I
But
would
like a
say
straight up diss, I would say.
yeah,
So
um,
so
yeah. That was like one of the ones that really heightened it. Like one of the
right, and
standards.
it changed the landscape, kind
Yeah,
of. But what I'm
yeah,
saying is like we always had, not to say that Busy B wasn't dope, because he was dope, and his was more like call and response and stuff like that. It wasn't really like lyrics, but we always had that. So I'm not really like, my thing with the youth is, and it's not their fault, because you have older rappers that um relate to them, but they're not teaching them how to pay homage, because they didn't pay homage to, the people before them.
I
You know
think
what I'm
that comes from
saying?
a lack of the thing about hip hop culture is hip hop, you know, and or I should say rap. Um, well, you know what? Hip hop. Let's just say rap interchangeably, rap slash hip hop. There was never a great consensus of education. It's always
Mm.
talked about in documentaries. So we say, pass the torch, and yeah, and it did happen, but not at a great level. And that's why That's why corporations came and took control,
Mhm.
because there was never, since you never passed anything down, there wasn't an urgency to learn. There wasn't an urgency to be educated. There was like, okay, we wing it in the whole night, we go for ourselves because, nobody really, like really saying, hey, this is how it's done, or this is what it does. Now you have like on a street level and cultural level, like Zulu Nation, and they passed information in the whole nine, and street stuff or whatever, whatnot. But the transition as a whole of the culture, um, the learning, the best way to describe it, I say the learning is just like it's like how I learned how to break. Nobody taught me how to break. I just paid attention. I looked, and I educated myself in the whole night. And that's the way it globally went outside of NY. If you were from NY, you had a great advantage. I was seeing something earlier today, and it had me thinking. There's a great advantage of when you're in NY, you have access to all of that stuff. But somewhere down the line, um, in the city, it just got to where it's like, it's just like it's there. So it's like, yeah, one day, I'll acknowledge it one day, and then as time goes on and on, you know what, I can cruise control this. You know what, I got this. And understanding the principles of things, it was never something that really, really was like pushed outside of certain situations within the culture, and as we know, culture knowledge is a part, element in the whole nine, but that was never really fundamentally, practiced at a level where it where we don't where we would have corporations would have a harder time to manipulate the current narrative. Because if you study the history of the whole nine, there are poignant times when the changing of the guard of the culture, when the elements of like writing, breaking, and DJing, and they stopped. That's from a lack of education.
Mm.
That's from a lack of acknowledgement of it. And you know, money is most people's gods
Mm.
within the culture of hip hop. That's their gods. The principles and the things that make this culture what it is not something that is that holds a lot of weight to them or whatever, whatnot. And it's understandable because you got people coming from environments that are very challenging in the whole nine, and they don't have the advantages that a lot of people have. So you have corporations coming in, exploiting that, and then you start to realize, well, we can make things off of our culture and really, and these corporations exploited it, and then it became the new way of doing things within in the culture. And when you start doing all of that stuff, it's hard to see, the guys on the corner, or the guys, tagging stuff up in the whole nine. The people who really do those things, practice that, or acknowledge that, those are the people who really are the culture. So to answer your question, is there anything within the culture where it's still a culture? It's all over the place because there's still people who follow the principles, and then there's some who definitely don't, and then there's like a third part where they say they're about the culture and all that, and I believe that in their heart they do have it, but they've never really like educated themselves on it. So
Right.
it's like they let like a specialist, or somebody who does it, or they look at or this person, oh yeah, that person is that and all that, and it's you know it has to be, people have to be more involved in order for it to really be what we say it is. Because a lot of people sound good on camera, but when you turn them cameras off, I've been around a lot of people, writers, b-boys, MCs, DJs, whatever, you know for a long time, and there's a lot of people, some of the most poignant, well-known people that people look up to, um and they sound, what they say and what they do is two different things when the cameras are off roll.
Right. Right.
Most
Right.
humans.
Right.
Yeah. But the
Right.
thing is,
Unfortunately.
that's
I mean,
that's 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 what kills our culture. You know what I mean? So
Mm-hmm.
we have this separation of the elements. They're all over here in the whole nine, and it was inevitable because of the development. Like DJing, just took off. All the elements took off. If we look right now, we break down each of the four elements. Um, you got guys like Kaz and Mel, and then you got guys like Munch and Cool Keith, and then so many people that are just incredible, and then you got like writers, that started out with Rust-Oleum and Red Devil Paint. Now you got German paint. You got like five or six different types of caps. And then you've got DJ, DJing, we created turntables. And then you've got, the equipment that comes, the needles, and
Mm-hmm.
all of that stuff. And so all of the advancements of the small intricacies of the advancements, all of that stuff. Um, there is a progression in all these things, but the context of cohesion is the one thing that fell short with all of that stuff, because it's a global thing. You can't really control all that stuff, and education is the one thing that would keep all of that stuff tied together. So I mean, around 86, that's when everything split up.
Mm.
think that's with anything with us, with so-called black and brown people. Um, whether it's hip hop, whether it's gang culture, it seems like when somebody's making a certain amount of money, when money gets involved, then the principles and the foundation and the values change. You
Mm-hmm.
know what I'm saying? It's like who got, like, you hear it, I'm chasing the bag, I got the bag. So what? I got the bag. So now that you got the bag and you're gonna keep getting the bag, and this other person's not getting the bag or whatever, like whatever you say goes or the bag rules. Like you said, money is their God. They analyze, the money, the fame, the notoriety, and what the money obviously could do for them and, the people that's around them, whatever. And then they get it to control other people too. Got people doing some wild stuff for it. So, yeah, I agree.
I bet you if there were more B-boys and B-girls becoming billionaires and getting big deals, then the B-boy culture would like have some type of resurgence or like a big boom if people saw that there's money behind it. If money's the motivation and that's what people are in search of, just like the Olympics, brought a little bit of quite a bit of talk about breaking and b-boy culture and b-girling. But did it do anything after after about a month? Most of the conversation was about Stingray and
Hmm.
negativity, which was trash to me because it overshadowed everything that was something that was monumental for the culture
Yeah,
And
and
they
the
snubbed a
element.
couple people too.
yeah,
And I didn't
Right,
like that. They snubbed a couple
right.
people. I wasn't feeling
But
that.
look now,
yeah.
no,
I mean,
it's
yeah,
no. Go ahead, Pluto.
there definitely was. I was a member of Breaking for Gold, so interacting with for the Breaking for Gold USA for the USA team. So the interaction of all that stuff and the conversations of the protocol of what happens, whatever, whatnot. That was another example. Um, the 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 people who were like in charge of that, or or making really dictating how the direction was going, they really didn't have a context of a lot of the things that historically come from um, NYC and the culture of the U.S. culture and the whole nine, and how it has to how it has to be presented, and the ways it was presented, and then the judging, and that's a whole other
Right.
story. I mean, we can
Yeah,
get
that
into
was crazy.
you get into all of that if you want to get into all that, but I will
That
say
was
this,
crazy.
from 2 years before the Olympics to now, it showed. Like, that was a great example from 2 years previous to the Olympics, and about like roughly about 8 months after that, it gave a great commentary of about people who are full of shit in hip hop culture.
Mm.
Full of shit.
Speak on it. Elaborate.
Dude from the Fat Boys, what's his
I
name?
saw that. Yeah.
He
Buffy was it? Buffy.
Oh,
Buffy.
no, Buffy.
Buffy's dead. You talking about
Oh,
Roski? Talking about Cool
Kowalski.
Roski?
He said some ignorant, messed up stuff about the Olympics and
right,
breaking and all that stuff, and it's like,
So his Lord Jamar said something about breaking too.
right.
yeah.
Quite a
And
few people were
well,
taking
well,
shots.
here's the thing about all those guys. Like, you really can't speak on nothing that you just showed up for the sake of content, or being, to have something to talk about. We've been in these trenches. I've been in these trenches since I was a kid. Breaking. Even when breaking died, I was still like involved in variables of breaking at a very low level. But like, it's like, if you don't practice this, like, don't do that, because honestly, in direct regards to rappers don't know shit about hip hop culture, and they the last people that need to speak on it. They really should, and just by those comments or what people said, and just people, like, it showed you how much people really know the culture. You know what I mean? Because everybody, all of a sudden, everybody became a breaking expert. Like I ain't seen none of y'all at any of the gyms in the past 30 years.
Right,
I've never seen y'all at any of the practices. I've never seen the variables. Some of y'all say, I used to break dance back in the day. Well, if you still calling it break dance, that's breaking culture. No, that y'all are not in this mix. It's changed. There's so many variables that change, and if you can't pinpoint it specifically and give articulate, accurate information, you lost the breaking community. So the rap community turned its back. But hip hop is breaking. Rap is rap. So that's the
mm,
thing, people got twisted. Like,
Hmm.
no, it's the other way around. People think, oh, hip hop don't mess with, breaking all that. No, y'all are not hip hop. Y'all are rap. Y'all are rap fans. And some of y'all suffer from Beat Street syndrome,
mm.
Talk
and
about it.
and it's one of those things where, you have a lot of people who speak on the culture and all that, but they're not practitioners, or they did it when they were kids and all that. And I respect all those who came before and who've done all that stuff, and that's cool in the whole nine or whatnot. But like, if you that those same people will get offended if somebody outside of rap, if Garth Brooks said, "Oh yeah, I can't stand that music," they get offended by
Right,
it. But you do
right.
the same thing to people within the
Mm,
culture and claim that you
hmm.
are from the culture.
Right.
How you sound? when you say what you say, like you just don't know. And then, it's like, one of the first things they say, well, yeah, but we know the culture and the whole nine, and then the first thing they bring up is like, Rock Steady Crew or Crazy Legs. It's like,
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
that's
is
the
he
We
default.
expect people outside the culture to take shots because they don't understand the culture or know the culture. But when you're a part of the or so-called a part of the culture, we expect you to be better and know better
Mhm.
and not talk down on other elements. You know what I'm saying? If you ain't got nothing good to say, don't say it. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
Every time I hear,
Why bring others down in the
right,
culture?
you're right. Every time somebody brings up, they can name a million rappers, but only can name less than a handful of b-boys or b-girls or writers.
writers,
And
Very
yeah.
it's
true.
always the same. It's always the same.
Right. Yeah, yeah.
Everybody mentions Cornbread. Everybody mentions Cornbread as a writer. Everybody mentions Crazy Legs, Turbo. You know what I'm saying?
It's always the same people,
You know
yeah.
what?
It'd be the same
Here's,
handful of people.
here's another thing about that. That also comes from a lot of people are still citing old education,
Hmm.
these old documentaries and old books that it's like we've upgraded from that. We've gotten a more narrative. You know, um, you know, between myself and Nora Rad, we've introduced close to 500 new
It's a
b-boys in
fly
breaking
name
code,
too.
like just pioneers that are well known, that we're slowly going to be documenting, and we're going to be presenting on all that stuff. So there's a narrative of what we're doing within breaking. Yes, we would love to have the cohesion of all the culture, but right now, it's like, since there hasn't been any acknowledgement of what we do, outside of breaking culture, we're doing it for ourselves. So we're going to be creating things and doing things for ourselves or whatever, whatnot. And people can still talk about who's their top favorite rappers.
Yeah,
For like,
people could give you their top 100
Mhm.
rappers. They
it's
could
like,
give you a list off the top of their head, their top 100, but can't tell you their five favorite DJs, their five favorite B-boys, their
but not
five
only that,
favorite, you know what I
but
mean,
Writers.
writers.
not only that, it's like what we're working on, what we are doing when we put out what we do, even in the narrative, the context of what we do, in particular breaking, we are trying to get rid of cliches and start adding value, intellectual value, and adding new levels, whatever, and that's going to translate outside of the stuff that we do. So when I see conversations of people saying, who are your top rappers, it's like,
Another
that's all
list.
y'all can talk about.
Another rap list.
Really? We was doing that in eighth and seventh grade 30
That's a
years
fact.
ago.
Word,
It's like,
That's a
word.
fact.
that's the best you can do. You have a platform, and that's what you can speak on, or whatever. It's like, at the end of the day, there are very few people, like I look at, to use an example, when people say, who are the top rappers, I look at that as like the way you judge breaking. I don't care if I'm judging breaking. I don't care if you're a crew member. I don't care if you're a friend or whatever, whatnot. I'm going to judge you on the same criteria. All that. My opinion don't matter. That's why when I do my research, my opinion, I don't have an opinion. I don't, people are, I could say my educated, I can give educated context, but, as far as an opinion on the whole nine, that's the problem. It's like most people, we don't even realize, if they were to judge an MC battle or just judge who's the best rapper, most people are not qualified because they cannot objectively
Mhm.
do that. And then they don't have the
Hmm.
education because they don't look at the variables in the context of somebody who came from the era they came from, the culture at that time, what was going on at that time, the political
Hmm.
atmosphere, and the variables where we were at as people, from various aspects and the whole lot. People don't hold that into the context because that's the foundation of hip hop culture, regardless of all the elements. That's where all of this stuff was created, from the political aspect of being disenfranchised and creating something out of nothing. If you don't add that intellectual context into it, you just a person who's giving, okay, that's my favorite, well, he's my favorite rapper, so I'm gonna go with him. And there's nothing wrong with that. But within the context of articulation, of going with what it's supposed to be and the standards, of just like you guys were asking, are there any standards or whatever, whatnot? If you don't have those standards or whatever, whatnot, it's just a bunch of people going back and forth giving their opinion. And opinions don't matter, when you're in a room with people who can present factual stuff.
Or I miss going to like the Zulu anniversaries every year and seeing some of the elements together, or should I say all of the elements were together in the
Full
building.
display. Full
It was on
display.
full display, you know what I mean? Like we had the MCs with the DJs. We had just DJ sets where we playing the breaks. The B-boys is
And there were
breaking.
battles.
There
The
were
DJs were
Yeah.
battles,
the
one-on-ones, crew versus
Group,
crew.
yep,
Y-
yep.
crew versus crew,
Ciphers.
one-on-ones,
Ciphers.
open ciphers,
Yep.
you know what I'm saying? So we had all the elements, people doing, even though, we were in a building or a hall or something, people had, the canvas there and people were doing pieces, like brothers like Zulu King Sloan and so on and so forth. And even when the MCs was performing, they had the B-boys or B-girls on stage too dancing. So all the elements were there. And in between, brothers was getting on the mic, whether through the raps they were dropping the knowledge or, you know what I'm saying, we was just dropping jewels. Maybe the host was dropping jewels and incorporating all of that. And then the meeting of the minds on Sundays where we were dropping knowledge and all of that too. So that was the true hip hop culture being in the building. Why I say that is because I think the Bronx Boys have the 50th anniversary coming up, right? That
Yeah.
didn't pass yet, right?
No, it's going to be the last weekend of July from Friday to Sunday.
No doubt. No doubt. That should be a,
Fire.
a pretty epic event. 50th anniversary.
Yeah,
Salute to everybody from the Bronx Boys, including, honor to the founder himself, Batch and Abby and all the originals.
yeah, yep,
Fire.
yeah. We definitely working, to really put something nice together, and there's going to be some surprises. There will we will be premiering. We'll be doing two premiere showings of the docu series on hip hop culture and in the TBB documentary about the history of the crew and everything. That will be the showing. So and and it's part community. There's a can drive.
Mm-hmm.
Donation of clothes and all of that stuff. To give back to the community and all of that stuff. So why we're celebrating the crew's anniversary. It's always been a situation where you know we've always had donated time and materials and food to the community.
That's dope, man. Salute. Big respect to all the members worldwide of the Bronx Boys Rockin' Crew. Big salute. You know what I mean? That's epic, man. Hopefully, we'll be able to pull up and support and
Absolutely.
show up. Want to
Eric for
definitely
sure.
yeah, definitely just gotta encourage all the Zulus to come out to the event and show love and support for real.
We were at the Shaw, like, was it 2 weeks ago? We were at the Shaw Rock event talking to like the peacemakers and a lot a
That's what's
lot of
up.
the OG luminaries within the culture, talking to a lot of people, and a lot of them said, yeah, we definitely come through and all of that stuff. So it's
That's what's up.
that's great, to have them come through and everything, and it's yeah, it hits a lot of things. It hits a lot of viewpoints. Some of them, are breaking culture because it's a breaking crew, originally a writing crew. So you have, various elements, and then you also have Bronx culture. and then you have Bronx street culture and family street families and all of those things who attend. You know, the Savage Skulls, the Nomads, the Zulus, the Spades, and all of that stuff. So you know, we get a who's who within the Bronx culture. You know, because there's a lot to Bronx
Right.
culture, and that's a lot
Mm.
of things people miss. You know, when they see the four elements, they missed it. Like, yeah, yeah, breaking, writing, emceeing, and DJing and the whole nine. But there's also the everyday culture, the street families and all of that stuff or whatever,
Right.
whatnot. That get acknowledged, and acknowledging, just the cohesiveness of the community. Like we can't break, we can't DJ, we can't MC, we can't write every day or whatever, whatnot. We still have that outside, stuff, and it's not about just being in a room full of just practitioners. You know, the culture is not just practitioners, and that's another thing we have to understand. It's the people who come and support that, or people who are involved with that, or whatever. And that's one of the great things about TVB. Not everybody in TVB is a writer, an MC, b-boy, or DJ. Yes, that is there, but we have people who are organizers. We have
Hmm.
some of our members are scholars. Some of our members are actually doctors, actual doctors,
Mm. Mm. Look at
that
that.
operate in hospitals,
Right.
globally,
Right.
and all of that stuff, and being a global clue, and members who are Zulu or Zulu affiliated, and other families and all of that stuff, because
Hmm.
um, we're at a point where interaction is something that's been going on for a very long time. So you're going to get all of that stuff.
Right.
Like Lord Yoda, R.I.P. And all would come through and support and all that, and great to have them, or whatever, whatnot. So it's
Right.
a beautiful thing, man, and that's where, if we want to get this right and get it back on board, that's where it can go. So our contribution, particularly what me and my business partner are doing, what we're pushing in the whole nine, we're working on organizing and creating narratives. We found a way to marriage business with culture, and we're applying
Mm.
it. So we're going to be the examples. When we launch what we launch, and we present what we present, you know, we want to interact with people, and and even do seminars or workshops to educate people on how to do these things. To educate people on how to to do, like, if you're doing your podcast, or doing your we're doing like your content, what cameras to use, and things like that, even to the point where we're going to lay out, all right, we'll do a workshop. This is for budgets: 100, 200, 300, 400, 5,000, 6,000. These are the budgets, what you have. These are the best ways to spend your money. This is where you should spend your money, to get what cameras you need, or what software
Mm.
give the best, best education on. It's like, okay, I have a $300 budget. What are the best things to get? You know what I mean? So
Right.
that's stuff that we're going to be doing within the community of breaking. But that doesn't mean we're not willing to go outside of breaking and do that in other vehicles, of situations, to share that stuff or whatever, whatnot. Because I mean, I've been in the space of since like 82, always sharing the culture. So now we've learned how to be business minded and have the balance of the culture. So we're applying that as we speak. We're applying all of that stuff, and I think being an example, it will show people, as being one of the many examples, because there's a lot of people doing it. Being one of the many examples, showing that people will say, well, okay, you know what? They're not just talking about; they're
You have an
doing.
echo coming across. What? Do you hear an echo? You don't hear an echo? I'm sorry to cut you off. I heard an echo, but it's all
it.
good, bro.
How's it now?
You
Is
sound
it?
good now. Yeah. Maybe it was just on my end. I just didn't want people to lose your wisdom with the echo going.
Definitely. So this is, this is something, we're losing a lot of people within the culture regardless of what element we do, but breaking has never been properly acknowledged and documented. So we're not chasing after popularity. We're not chasing after the bag. We're not chasing after notoriety. What we are creating, we're not chasing. We're creating, and that's for our community and what we do. Somewhere down the line, maybe somebody will see all of that and will be able to to say, hey, let's collaborate or whatever, whatnot. But sometimes you got to clean your house before you can start, you know, feeding other people.
Yeah,
And
true.
breaking we need it, because like this culture would not be global without breaking.
Fact. Great. That's a fact.
Hmm.
That's the fact.
I
And the
think a lot
B-boys
of
are
the
kind of
rappers.
carrying it right now. The B-boys are carrying it on a global level, there's still events going on worldwide, like B-boy events worldwide.
This is
You know what I'm
breaking season,
saying?
you
Active.
know,
Right.
from early to mid June till about middle of September is what we call breaking season, and then there's an area called there's and in October we call it Rocktober, you know,
Mm.
meaning rock dance or rocking, is the name of another name of b-boy. So that time frame is very poignant globally. That's where you will see the most events and all of that stuff. So that's the most busiest time, for the culture. In between all of that, people are stockpiling or organizing the next year's season and all of that stuff. So it's no different than like a sports season. Yes, there's still things that go on outside of all of that stuff, but that's where you get the most, and that's where you see the most events, and I mean, it's crazy now, and I think that's beautiful, where there's a whole bunch of events that go on globally and locally and a whole nine. The only thing I think, within the culture, I think we need to, work together and like not overlap the events so everybody can frequent all the events and that's what we're working on. We're working on creating a global cohesion. We're thinking big, we're thinking global. We ain't thinking we're not thinking regional, we're not thinking national, we're thinking international. So what we're working on is international, whatever, whatnot. So we are leveling up, and the access of the people who we will be in talks with in the whole nine, for potential growth will be big. And we want to teach people to work with people, not work for people. Our whole thing is to create businesses. We're not trying to work for anybody, for their dreams and put their children, through college. We try to put our children, through college, and we try to, create generational wealth for our culture and our people, whatever. Whatnot. It's time we make money off of our culture in like corporations. So I've had people like, well, you should, talk to these corporations. Like, yo, I got no problem working with corporations. We will work with, but I'm not working for. But
Mm.
we've been doing this on alone. We don't need them.
Mm.
It will be a privilege for them to work with us. And as we level up and we really start to push and do what we're creating, they will see the privilege of that. And we ain't trying to be millionaires. We just trying to, be able to do comfortably, do all of that stuff. So we're not under, but we're not overshooting ourselves. But we
Right.
have goals. We have big goals, and we have big perspectives of what we want to do and what we want to create. And eventually, maybe some of that will, you know, um, go out, outside of breaking culture, whatever, whatnot, because, it's all about progression for the
No
culture.
doubt, no doubt. I think it's important, as the culture continues to get older, that um organizations, whether it be TBB, whether it be Rocksteady Crew, whether it be Zulu Nation, Zulu Union, whatever, even all these new grassroots hip hop organizations, like we got to make sure that we're doing events, preserving the culture, teaching the culture, and just keeping it grassroots level versus like the corporate level. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't have a problem with Red Bull. I don't know much about Red Bull, like what their thing is with hip hop, but I see they're doing, of course, they've been doing B-boy events for a long time. Now they're doing like MC ciphers and all of that. And I'm like, man, it seems like Red Bull's putting more money behind the culture than like anyone else. It's crazy. You know what I'm
Well,
saying? And
Red Bull has been in that space for a minute.
definitely,
The the music academy. They've had like Pharoah Monch on there. They've had Q-Tip. They have these sit down talks with a lot of the journalists. The musical journalists. And they have like these in depth interviews and all of that stuff, whatever, whatnot. And they're high quality, and that's what we want to convey. That's the direction of where we're going. To convey all of that stuff. To have high
right,
quality contextual interviews with what we do. No one is going to do this for us. No one's going to level this up. So we have to figure this stuff out, and we have to put in the work for ourselves, and that's what we're doing. We're that's why myself and my business partner, we're in school. And we understand. Not everybody um, has that opportunity. Whether you be younger because you can't afford it, or whether you be older you can't afford it, or whether you be older because you don't have the time. So our thing is like, eventually, to give back, we want to, like again, you know, do like workshops, and and pass on what we know, and how to go about getting the proper avenues and material and all of that stuff, or whatever, whatnot. So as we're building our business, and building, the other things that we're building, we're doing a docu-series, and we're still, still pushing the education. So it's a lot. I enjoy the journey, I enjoy the challenge. I look at the challenge as like, when I was breaking hardcore, the physical challenge of not allowing myself not to be able physically to do something. So I'm in the mental space of not allowing myself not be able to create what I'm creating, and do all of that stuff. And we definitely want to pass all of that down, whatever, whatnot, for people who may not have that opportunity, or say, what, hey, look into this. Here's the route to go. Here's the starting point. Here's what you start with. You know, here's where here's the spaces where you can take it to the next level, and you can go from here, and add on to what you do, and when people start to see our potential, because we have a lot of potential, we don't even tap in, and that's why we want to present examples to really tap in and take things to the next level, and really like, yeah, we are the food source of this culture. We are the culture. We need to act like that. We need to like act on that by taking steps to do all of that stuff. It's just about just starting. And it's we people are like, well, where did you start? Like, we just started. We just
Hmm.
started. We just started. My business partners at the time, we were talking about what we would do, what we're gonna do when we launch, and all that stuff. And we were saying this for a while, and I was like, you know what? I'm tired of y'all talking about this. We going live today. I'm tired of y'all talking. I'm tired of hearing talk. I have this philosophy that I was telling my business partner earlier today or yesterday. If somebody's saying what they're going to do 5 times, they ain't going to do it.
Hmm.
So don't say it 5 times. Do it.
Or
You're gonna make mistakes. That's the beauty of learning what you learn. A lot of people want to level up, and and want that that beautiful story of leveling up, but you know what it is, the mistakes are going to be so much beneficial. So when you really get to a higher level, you're going to have all of that information, you're going to have all of that wisdom, to translate to, when you get to the position where, you're getting talks, you're getting connections, and you're getting, feedback, and you're getting into whatever level what you consider success. um you're going to have a better way of handling all of that stuff because of all the mistakes. The mistakes is what's going to build you. The mistakes is what's going to make you accurate when you get to that next level. Each level, is, you're going to learn from that. And you're
Yes,
going to figure
indeed.
out how to, elevate that. I'm working every day, whether it be history, whether it be the business, whether it be school, personal things, just all of that stuff, man, like anyone else. And again, I ain't special. I am not special. I ain't do nothing special. Ain't nothing special
Nah,
about me.
you special, brother. Nah, you special. You
You
know what
know
I
what?
mean?
What
Like
more do
you could
I
be,
know?
that's cool to be humble and all that, but respect is due. You are doing something special for the culture. You know what I'm saying? You and your partners, you and your brothers in TBB, y'all are doing something special. So don't discredit or take anything away from yourself. You
Yeah,
should be respected and honored for your work.
I
Because
appreciate
it's a lot of work. And this isn't what you're doing isn't easy. This is something that consumes you. You know what I'm
it. Yeah,
saying? I'm sure when you wake up, it's on your mind. When you go to sleep, it's on your mind. You know what I'm saying? And then you put in all the work in between waking up and sleeping. So don't
yeah,
don't don't say that because y'all are special and you know what I mean? And I know that what's gonna ultimately come from y'all is gonna be something that's gonna take the culture to a new level and it's gonna cement the not only the historic aspect of hip hop, but it's going to shape the future of where it's going as well.
and, and
You know what I'm
that's and
saying?
that's
It's going to be a
but
big advancement.
here's the beauty. Here's the beauty of what we do, and and what we we were like brainstorming a whole night. Part of what we do, this isn't like a big portion of what we do is about helping the culture, helping others. So we're in the space of doing something that helps everybody. This isn't something of, it's like, we take all of this stuff and we run and we go to some hill up in there. No, this is, again, this is the cohesion of mixing business with cultural narratives. It can be done. Shit. I brainstormed. Excuse my language. I brainstormed on it for a few decades, for like a good 2 or 3 decades, actually 3 decades. And I, because people tell me, like you need to find a way, to do something with what you know, and I'm like, yeah, I'm working on it. You know, 30 years back, and people thought I was just, yesing them and brushing them off, but they don't understand. Like I've been working on, there's a whole bunch of narratives. I've been under a rock, and doing all that stuff. So when we launch in the whole nine, people like, oh, okay, we see now, whatever, whatnot. But sometimes, what we're doing, we're building a hybrid company. It's never existed. So the variables of various things, we're taking various things like hip hop culture, and we're regurgitating and creating something that, like there's there's fundamentals from various places that we take and add to all that, but the cohesion of what we do, whatever, whatnot, it's a hybrid. It's a hybrid company slash situation, whatever, whatnot. So uh, it, it it it's a lot of tweaking,
Hmm.
So, and one of the things we're launching will be a Instagram slash Facebook social media hub. We call it the hub for breaking community. We've already, found the coders to build it. So it's being, I think, yeah, this is like the third or fourth week that, it's slowly being built. So we plan on launching it, about a year, maybe a year and a half from now. So there will be a new platform for the breaking community where we'll be able to, to interact, network, learn, educate. We'll be launching our docu series. We'll be, and all the projects that, we're involved in, and all the things that we're doing or whatever, whatnot. And the entrepreneurship and all of that stuff. So, you know, this is where we're going with it, and it all started from, the history, just
Hmm.
researching the history or whatever, whatnot. So, like, to take something as simple as the history and translating it into, a narrative of where we as a culture can benefit from it is something that, is what, we're all about and what we're trying to do. So yeah, man. So, but
That's dope.
there's a lot of politics, like you always have to keep your ear to what's going on, what people are doing, whatever, whatnot. So it's important to know the stuff that we present from the past, but we also stay involved with the scene, what's currently going on. So we, as time progresses, we're going to be introducing a lot of new stuff and introducing a lot of stuff a lot of people thought they would never see or expect to see.
That's dope. I want to ask
Oh
you
yeah.
before we get going. I'm looking forward to that, and I'm excited towards seeing that unfold. And although I'm not a b-boy or in the breaking community, I admire it, and I respect it, to the fullest. And I'm always
Collaborations, brother, collaborations, that still don't mean the collaborations don't
right,
stop,
right.
outside of it, you know.
Right, right. You know what I mean? But I definitely want to see it and learn from it and interact with it as best as I can. So I'll be on the lookout for that for sure. But what I wanted to ask you before we get going, um, I would like you to give our listeners, because it could be there's people that's going to be advanced in hip hop and there's people that may be new to the culture. Just give me any type of, whether it's a rocker or b-boy, one type of breaker in hip hop for somebody to go Google and do some research on. It could be anybody that you admire or think that they would benefit from learning about, and also like a writer maybe that you may admire or respect their work. You know what I'm saying? Just so they can go on Google or and just do the knowledge and the research on it, so they can learn a little bit more about the culture.
All right. I'll go with the writer. Man, see the b boy thing is easier, and
I
and
didn't
and I'll
plan this with Pluto. I just dropped this on him right now, y'all. Like I ain't
I'll,
telling
I'll,
nothing
Hmm.
about it. You know what I'm
so
saying?
when I explain the b boy, you'll understand why it's easier. Um, like, man, there's so many writers that uh, I could go and do like a old school dude, but then all right, I'll do two, and they're European writers, Can two,
Okay.
and
Okay. Can
Mode
two
two,
and mode.
Can two and Mode two. They're they're
Okay.
they're from they're from overseas, and um yeah, we could definitely, later on, get back to, like old school writers and all that. But, I admire, where they've taken things, the level where they've gotten, just the complexity of their style and how dope the characters and their lettering, because, a lot of people say writing is about, originally writing is about letters, but then you got guys who just focus on characters. But these guys, they just have dope characters and letters, and their coloring.
Mm.
The way their color schemes, and the way they create, and use the colors and interact the colors. They're real dope. And then plus, uh, Mode two. I remember in the early. I remember in the '90s all the way up to early 2000s, there's a b-boy event called Battle of the Year, which is like the biggest b-boy event
Mhm.
where people from all over the
Mhm.
world. It's like this huge event. They would do they would do the covers of the DVDs and the VHS tapes.
Mm.
Mode
Dope.
two. So yeah, then. But as far as breaking, there's so many. But one dude I think is an incredible teacher, and he's, I'm honored to say that he's a personal friend, and I was speaking to him earlier. I speak to him a lot, and he shares so much. K1, and that's Kwone. K is Kay's an older gentleman. He's an older gentleman. I think he's like 62 or 63. You know, he's gonna get at me for not knowing this. But yeah, but but Kay right now is when you see him dance, like there's video, there's you can go on, there's clips of him all over Facebook,
You
Instagram,
talking
and
right now,
yeah,
2025, you saying?
yeah, like there's one of him where he did a judging like 2 years ago, whatever, whatnot.
Hmm.
He's still nasty. Like
Mm.
he's still nasty. He is like when you see him dance, he is the essence of what breaking should look like. There's a lot of dope dudes that spin on their ears and their elbows and their nose for a half hour, but his style, he has his flexibility. He's not lost his flexibility, his fluidness. He doesn't crash. He's smooth. So when you see that, you're gonna look like this dude is like he's in his early 60s and he's still nasty. Like could, he could cipher with these young cats. Like he's
Mm.
that respected
Crazy.
globally. He's that respected globally. So how you spell his name? It's Kwone or K/WON, like K1, like he won. He's originally from the Bronx, but moved out into Queens, and he represents Queens and the whole nine. So just a little background also on him. I was, he's originally from NY, and then he moved out to Texas. So I was out in Texas, hanging out with him and some of my TBB brothers, out in the Texas chapter. And K's the type of dude, he will show you calisthenics that I've never seen before. That like
Mm.
you can't do, bro. He, like there's this one, all right, there's one calisthenic that it's not a well known, but if you're in that space, do it where he just lays down on the ground and he just he stands straight up without using his hands to go up. Like
Crazy.
he does
Crazy.
these crazy, so he was big on, Bruce Lee, and like his whole aesthetic and his perspective of breaking as a kid is still playing today. We were talking to, me and my business partner, we had a conversation with him for like 2 hours today. Like
Mm.
his physicality, like he's like, yo, he's like, I don't practice. I just do my calisthenics and I stretch. And you look at him like,
Mm.
how does he do? Like when you see the videos, you're like, yo, how does this dude not
Yeah, I'm gonna
practice?
look him up later. I'm gonna look him up after this.
Yeah, how does he
Well,
not
I'm looking him up
practice and
now.
he's that fluid? There's, you'll see videos from back in the day in the whole nine. So, he's one of those dudes. It's one when you physically see him because he has a saying, seeing is believing. So he's all about like he's not about talking. He's about showing you. He'll show
mm.
you. He's one of those guys right now. If he teaches you how to break, he ain't going to tell you to do something to hold on that he ain't going to do.
Mm.
He will show you. He will show you how to do it before you do it. And
Mm.
you will have a harder time doing it than he will.
Mm.
So he's just an incredible dude, amazing dude. His mind, he's serious, but he also like with us, he bugs out in the whole nine. And it just like he just just to be in the space with him, he shared so much stuff. Because I remember the first time I seen him, he had that look like, yo, this dude was a stick up kid back in the day.
Mm.
He has that hard classic hard rock look. But then talking with him, nah, he was just, he was just like he had that Rakim nobody smile, like 86 Rakim, nobody smiling,
Mm.
aesthetic.
Mm.
But he's very approachable. When you sit down and talk to him, like his look and his demeanor is totally different than when you sit down and have a conversation with him. He's very approachable. So I want people, if you see him, he's very approachable. He's very
No doubt.
incredibly rich and he's cool. So I could talk about him for hours. But yeah,
Man,
yeah,
that's dope. Appreciate that, man. And we appreciate you coming on here to talk about the state of the culture and your opinion on it, man. And
absolutely.
we
And,
we
and
always grateful for your
if you
time and your wisdom.
Absolutely. And if you guys want to talk about, things outside of breaking, I tell people I don't just articulate, like breaking culture. I can speak about the other elements at the same level.
No doubt. No doubt. Definitely. Yeah, man. We would love to have you on. Much, let's make this as often as we can. Let's get together on
Mhm.
here
About to make
because
him
Y'all
a
already
it's
know.
recurring
really
host.
Y'all already
right.
know.
It's
Like
it's our
I
it's
can
our
teach my
pleasure
class.
to have you here, man. For real, we need you. We need your wisdom. You know what I'm saying? Because we be learning from you. You know what I'm saying, and we be
Word.
passing
It's
that
a
on.
fact.
You know what I'm saying?
Word.
So.
Yeah, I appreciate.
Much
Um,
respect for all your work. Keep us in the loop. You know what I'm saying? Don't forget to update your brothers about what you're doing. Anything we could do for you or the Bronx boys, man, we always down to help y'all or assist,
If you
man.
guys
You
ever
know what I
want to
mean?
come through,
Yeah.
hang out with
Yeah.
Brett.
We
You
might
know,
pop out.
we're doing we're doing the cookout on Sunday too. So come through. It'll be a great, after all the craziness of the anniversary and all the events and the whole nine, to come through, and hang out, and just chill in the whole nine.
No doubt that
Um,
would be peace.
Friday, they're, some of the members they're doing, they got like this fancy tour bus, and they're going to be going through, they're going to be doing a tour, of various places throughout the Bronx. Um, with the history of TBB, talking about the history, and they're going to be going to poignant places of Bronx history and TBB history or whatever whatnot. They wanted me
All
to
right.
do it, but the night before, I have a bunch of other obligations and the whole nine. So,
No
um,
doubt.
I won't be able to do the tour, but there's that, and you can just, go on any of, the Facebook or the Instagram sites of TVB, the Bronx Boys, Bronx Girls Rocking Crew, to see, the layout, of the flyer and the things that are going on. And it's going to be the last weekend of July.
That's what I'm gonna save the day,
Word.
my brother, for real.
Absolutely.
Lastly, any social medias that you could shout out if people want to connect with you?
Um, um, on Instagram, we got Homage Crew. That's Homage the regular way. It's homage.crew, KRU on Instagram. There's Pluto 7. Um, there's Pluto 7, Pluto 7 Goonage on Instagram. And then, Pluto 7 TBB on Facebook. Those are the places, where, I do things. As far as interaction, my Facebook page is more of like, more of a relaxed thing. But, I respond to, everybody, if you reach out there, whatever, whatnot. I just, my page, my '70s page had gotten hacked on
Yeah.
Facebook, and Facebook, said, I wasn't who I was when I presented idea and all that stuff. So I have to thank Facebook, for giving me the push, to create what I create or whatever, whatnot. So, it's yeah, I post up some stuff, but the history stuff and all that is mainly on Instagram or whatever, whatnot. And eventually we're gonna translate all of that stuff and more on our own social platform. We and it's no disrespect to any of these platforms and all that, whatever, whatever, but we need to have our own stuff,
No
where
doubt.
we have our own home and the whole nine, and we control all of that stuff or whatever, whatnot.
Right.
It's about us controlling our destiny and not leaving it in the hands of corporations.
That's a
It would be a
fact.
privilege for them to work with us, not the other way around.
Word.
Right.
Word.
Straight up. Straight up and down. For real. Well said.
Yo,
Well
and
said, my brother.
y'all go back to our earlier episodes when we first started, and Pluto's at the beginning, like two or three of them. You know what I'm saying? Dropping
Yeah.
some real
Yep.
important history.
Yep. Definitely. Definitely a great way to start. If you're new to the culture and you want to learn, go check out Pluto on some of our previous episodes. And connect with them on social media, man, so you can stay in the loop and get some of that knowledge and that wisdom and participate in what they got going on, man, at the Bronx Boys Rock and Crew. Man,
Can,
salute, man. Big big respect. What
can
you
I say
say?
one? Can I
Yes, of
say one
course,
last?
of course.
Also, there is, again, the cruise documentary slash docu series. We'll be showing. We will having two viewings of that at the on Saturday at the TBB anniversary at the Lincoln Hospital in the Bronx. So people will be able to see the docu series slash documentary what we're working on, and then also we at Homage Crew we will be we're working on our docu series because we've shared a lot of stuff with other people, but now it's time for our turn to do our own stuff from our perspective. In the whole nine, we still like to to collaborate and work with people in the whole nine, but now we're in a position to do our version of what from our home platform, and then also working with Dancing Doug from who's an original
Hmm.
Herculor, original B boy from the cool
Hmm.
Herc days. He's got a documentary that will be coming out that I helped. That was helped involved with, and that should be coming out. And both these documentaries, been doing research, going all over the world to talk to b boys and b girls all over the world for like the past 3 or 4 years. Those both of those documentaries are going to be dropping soon.
Fire, man. Looking
Oh,
forward to seeing that. For real, man. Wow. Heavy. Looking forward to that, man. Really, you in the real mix of presenting and preserving true hip hop culture, man. For real.
We
Salute.
trying, man.
For
We
real.
try.
Salute, my brother. For real. Keep
word.
striving. And we're here to support it all, man. Whenever
And I'm
that
here to
Dancing
support y'all
Doug
too.
documentary or any of
Any
your
street,
footage, yeah, yeah, yeah. We want to have you back on to talk about all these projects, all this work that's going on, man. And
absolutely.
again, revisit some of that history, because if I recall, when we did have you on, we was talking about the early 70s, and we would like to get into some of them later eras down the line
Got
too.
up to like 76.
Right,
Yeah,
right,
something
Yeah,
like that.
it's
right.
Yep.
time
Yep.
touching
Yep.
77.
Right. So
Yeah,
next time maybe we get on, let's go a little further. You know what I'm saying?
absolutely.
Look, that would be our pleasure and honor to have you on there to talk about that, man.
I'm here for y'all.
Absolutely.
No doubt. Appreciate that
Appreciate
for
you.
real.
Word.
Word,
Appreciate
man.
you,
Yo,
both of y'all.
shout out to all the listeners, man. Again, peace to our brother Pluto 7. Tap in with him, and get some of the true hip hop culture. Um, big respect, peace and love to all. Thank you for tuning in to
Peace.
Spears and Mics. Peace.